Helen, you're still on mute.
Same for you.
Oh, I was doing so well. I was saying so many amazing things. All right. Take two. Right. It's live, right? Okay, so welcome to the Primalista Virtual Open Week Day 4. So far this week on day 1, we've examined our values. And the purpose of that exercise really is to understand that when we align our vocation or our income with something that we're spontaneously inspired to do anyway, something we don't need to motivate ourselves to do, we just love doing it anyway, that it's a beautiful place to be. We also looked at our perceived advantages and disadvantages starting a Primalista business. And that's going to be my go-to today, the disadvantages. So we can ask some real life Primalistas some of those doubts and fears that you've got. That's what we're going to focus on today. On Tuesday, day 2, we looked at how the whole license works. Day 3, we looked at council regulations and we did our due diligence with potential stockists and we checked them off on the Primalista stockist spreadsheet. And today we're joined by real life Primalistas, Tania from Perth and Char from Queensland. Now, I think the best place to start is with a little intro. So, Tania, you are first on board with Primal Alternative. If you could give us a little intro and tell us how long you've been with Primal Alternative and just a little bit about yourself, that would be a great place to start.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm in Perth. I've got 3 teenage children, years 8, 10 and 12. So still pretty busy, although they're quite self-sufficient these days. I started Primal Alternative about 2 years ago and really wanted to work around what I needed to do with the kids. My husband was traveling internationally a fair bit and often flying as solo as a single parent. I needed to be around and I wanted to be around as well. So I opted not to do markets because that didn't fit in with me needing to be around for kids' sport on the weekend. So I really based my business around stockists and retail sales. Built up slowly and kept going.
Awesome. Thank you, Tania. And then let's go to Char, who is a relative newcomer.
Yeah, so I'm based in Brisbane and joined Primal Alternative in the middle of June. So very, very new. I've been at this for 7 or 8 weeks now. I have twin 6.5-year-old boys who started prep this year. I'm currently training for a half Ironman, which I hope will take place in about 4 weeks' time. My husband also had a job before that where he was traveling quite a bit, but is more local to Queensland now, and just looking for something that would fit around my family. I didn't want to go back to the corporate environment where I spent 15 years. I needed something to fit around my family and something to kind of align with my own values and my own passions. So turning something that I love into something I get paid for.
Perfect. Now it's going to be a really just an open forum. Like I was saying before, there's no, we haven't had a rehearsal. We haven't said, these are the questions you're going to get asked. We haven't planted any questions. It is seriously just a really open situation where you get to ask all of your questions to our Primalistas. So I'd love you to turn on your mic and just start the questions coming. If you're feeling super nervous, then it's okay to put your questions in the comments and I can ask the Primalistas for you as well. So who has got a question for our lovely Primalistas?
Hello.
Hi Bernadette. How are you?
Sorry for my non-makeup working from home face. I guess you're prepared. I just wanted to ask, this is an idea for me that has been going and coming all the time. And in the end, what I go down to is money. You know, I'm a single parent. I have no support here in Australia, so money is a big thing for me. You know, and independence. I am done with commuting. I am done with working. At the moment, I have a bit of a honeymoon of COVID. You know, then I can still work a little bit from home, and I have to. Sometimes I have full days, well, full on, as we all do. Well, Tania, that you've been doing it for longer. Money wise, you know, how do you get a stream of money? You know, how can you rely on it? Can you depend on it? How do you find money?
It is a tricky one, certainly, and having stockists helps, I think, in terms of you know who they are and that they order every week, every second week, once a month, and you kind of get a feel of how much you're baking. So that gives you a baseline of, yes, I'm, kind of know what I'm getting from these stockists, but they can order more one week and less the next week, and then it's school holidays, and so it still fluctuates. But you're selling to them at a wholesale price, which means you're making a little bit less on your profit margin. So the ideal is to supplement it with a market or retail sales yourself, private sales, so that you're making that higher margin on those sales to sort of balance it out a bit. I know the girls who do markets, it's also, up and down. It's not always the same at every market, but it's certainly a good way to increase your income. I suppose I'm lucky in that it's not our only source of income, so it is an extra. I wouldn't say I could retire on it, but it's certainly been a good way to supplement what we've got coming in and to pay for some of those extras. Yeah.
And Tania, would you mind?
It's a variety.
Say I only bake on 2 days a week, so it's not a full-time job for me either.
It's distributing, not putting all the eggs in the same basket.
Yeah, and thanks for clarifying, Tania, because that's what I was just going to say. Can you tell us how many days a week that you bake? Because there are some Primalistas doing it full time, and then there's others that are just doing a couple of days a week. So, Char, did you want to answer that question as well?
Yes, same as what Tania said. It will fluctuate, but I think once you start forming relationships with a couple of good stockists, and really, when I first started, I thought I would need 5 or 7 or 10 stockists. But I've got 2, and they keep me plenty busy to do 2.5 to 3 days a week if you take into consideration the admin that goes along with running a business yourself and the deliveries, etc. But yeah, I think you start to build a good relationship with your suppliers, and it just becomes a repetitive business. So I've got a supplier who's incredible. It's an online organic farmers market that they don't just purchase or order the products from me. They market the hell out of my product and out of me, and they'll showcase stuff about me or about the products, and they'll, like, I think my first order with them in the first week was 100 different products. So I think building that relationship with people and with other groups, especially in businesses where it's about developing women and women working together, that will translate into the income that you're looking to get. So just from the stockist on 1 day work a week, I basically earn more than what I ever did working in the corporate environment in 1 day. So if you took a day by day comparison, yeah, so it's, but it would fluctuate from one to the next, and depending on whether you decide to do markets, retail, wholesale.
Sort of hitting a nerve. Once you hit a good one, it can take you all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that for people in your situation that they're the sole source of the income for the house, and and it's even just general business advice for starting out in business to not really just cut off your. I would never recommend cutting off your full-time job to start a fledgling business. And what some of the other primalistas in that situation have done is they've reduced their hours in their full-time work, so they're still getting that stability of the income, and the current job is then becoming like an investor in the new business. And then you've got this like transition phase where you're working the two businesses, and then it's always good to kind of set a goal to say, right, well, when I hit X amount of orders or X amount of days baking or X amount of dollars, then I can release some of this other work on this side, if that makes sense. Cool. All right. Who's got a question for our Primalisters? Hello, Adriana. Nice to see your face. So nice to see faces today. There was just no faces yesterday. But everyone...
I have a question,
Go for it.
Helen. One of my concerns is not being able to have a balance between my family everyday life. I mean, I'm a stay-home mom at the moment. I'm currently struggling with time. So how do you manage to have a balance between them without stressing you out?
I can go first. I set my bake days quite specifically, that I know that on those days, and my children know that on those days, breakfasts are prepared before the day, lunches are prepared the night before, and I've normally organised a dinner for those days, so that if I'm baking a huge day, that all those kind of things are taken care of. I'm not trying to think of family meals around that at the same time. And I'm keeping my kitchen clean because my family are not all gluten-free. So that means nobody's going to come in and want to slice some normal bread while I'm baking. So they now know, but they are old enough to know that, I suppose, and to understand that. And I think it's just setting some clear boundaries in, I do my crepe on a Monday evening, I bake on a Tuesday, and I deliver on a Wednesday for the majority of my stockists, and then Thursday I'm baking again. I think it's just about making sure you know what those times are and when you do have the time, and sticking to it.
How many bakings do you do that day around?
It very much depends. It's normally on a Tuesday about 65 units. So whether it's breads, cookies, pizza bases, that's about average. And then Thursdays is normally a bit smaller. It's normally my retail customers and a couple of other smaller stockists. So it doesn't take me the whole day on Thursday to bake. I know I've got time to do some other things. But Tuesday is definitely dedicated to my major stockists and their orders.
Thanks.
What about you, Char? What would you say to that question?
Yeah, I think, well, my kids are quite a bit younger and they've just started school this year. So I think, I'm not sure if you were in the call earlier when I introduced myself, but I've got 6.5-year-old twin boys. And one of which struggles a bit with sensory integration issues. So there's quite a lot of hands-on work that happens with him, in terms of occupational therapy, etc. So it's just an added challenge to focus on during the week. But yeah, same as Tania, setting those clear boundaries. I do a couple of small retail things on a Tuesday, only because some of them might require sending via Australia Post or Sendle, which you need to do earlier in the week. Wednesday is my big bake day. Thursday I'll do some admin stuff. Like this morning I had to do a big one because I'm doing a tasting tomorrow at Stockist. And yeah, I think the boundaries and making sure that everything's planned and prepped in terms of meals for those days does help quite a bit. And in all honesty, I can still walk my kids to school, pick them up afterwards. They don't have to go to after school care. So for me, the most important thing when I joined was that whatever I did to generate an income would not be at the expense of my kids and my family. So maintaining that balance is important, and also maintaining that balance to catch up with someone for a coffee during the week. So that self, that investment in self is also something that that helps to balance out what you do.
Gorgeous.
Awesome. Thank you, Char.
Thank you. We've had a question from the Facebook group. So if you see me on my phone, it's because I'm just monitoring what's going on in Facebook. It's not that I'm just posting on Instagram and ignoring you. So I've got a question from Tracy in the Facebook group who's watching, who's saying, her question is, with no personal boundaries or territories, brilliant question, how do you know the supply of Primalistas will exceed the stockists? I think that means, how do we know that there's going to be enough stockists for everybody? So who wants to go first with that one?
I could try. There's quite a few of us in Perth that we're quite close, clustered together, so that was certainly a concern of mine. But we just haven't hit that issue. There's just, the brand has grown, the awareness of the brand has grown, the demand has kept growing, and you'll all find your own relationship with people. I think somebody might have approached a stockist who says no, and it's not right for them at the time, and maybe that wasn't the right relationship, and you can come along 6 months later and build a relationship. I was very much wanting to stay in my local community. I didn't want to have stockists that were 45 minutes drive away, and so far I've managed to do that. And when I did get a stockist a bit further away, it was a great relationship, and I was happy to do it, and we negotiated a fee for a delivery or a minimum order, so that it was worth my while to drive to that stockist. But I absolutely love her shop, and she loves the product, and we've got a great relationship. So I think it is still a relationship business, and yeah, the orders haven't stopped coming just because there's been more of us. I think we've all promoted the brand in Western Australia, and it's kept growing.
Yeah, and I think also in terms of classifying stockists, when you think of the different kinds of groups of people who, or organisations or businesses who could potentially sell the product, you're looking at health food stores, cafes. I mean, how many cafes are out there, and how many of them don't have a good gluten-free or grain-free option? So that's a huge market. You've got the markets, if that's an option for you. And then also, like last week, I followed up on an inquiry from a naturopath who's setting up his own health clinic, and he often recommends products to his customers. So he's wanting to put in orders, on a weekly basis. So the market, I think the demand out there far exceeds the supply of Primalistas, and H will know from when before I joined, one of my main things was whether there would be a competitor close by. And it's really funny because as soon as I joined, it moved from seeing other Primalistas as a competitor to a sisterhood. The amount of support is phenomenal. So I don't see myself as competing against anyone in Brisbane who's a Primalista. We all work together, really.
I'll say the same, and I've been able to go on holiday or go and see family, take a break, and the other ladies have filled in and done my orders, and so my business doesn't stop because I've taken some time off or had to go away for an emergency or whatever. It keeps going because there's a great relationship between all of us around here, and we support each other through. One of the girls' ovens broke, so she could phone me and say, can you bake for me this week because my oven's broken? So although we are only 20 minutes away from each other, we're certainly not fighting against each other for orders.
Perfect. Thank you. That's awesome. I've got another question from Facebook, and if anybody else has got a question, if you just raise your hand, and then we can go to you next. A question from Guinevere, who has joined us on the Facebook group, is just wanted to know if anyone has started their business and then had to move interstate. I don't think that's affected either of you yet. I can't think of it. What's happened to Kyra, but she hasn't started baking yet in her new home by the country. But I don't think it would affect your business too much. Oh, I know who has done that. Leonie's done that. Leonie moved from Victoria to New South Wales, Leonie Hartwig. So I might ask her to answer that question and get back to you on that one. But essentially, what all you need to do would just be to get your food business registration in the new place, and then you just carry on. You know the recipes, you know how to build relationships, and you just start from scratch there, but with a brand that most people have heard of, hopefully. Okay, let's go for another question in the Zoom group from Yvonne. I'm just trying to unmute you first. There we go.
I did it. I got it. Hi, everybody. Just wondering, did anybody make any special modifications to their vehicle for delivery, or did they get any special vehicle? No.
Now I've got a 4-wheel drive, which is a typical Queensland vehicle. Yeah, no, I've not had to do that.
Shouldn't be necessary. You deliver to stockists at ambient temperature, except for the pastry, which is frozen. So you could just have an esky for that, but all the breads and pizza bases and things just go at ambient temperature.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the temperature. I'm more worried about the mess from the kids and the dogs. And
I always have it in a box or a crate. Yeah.
Yeah. Will it get passed for health inspection if it's a family car?
Mine was. I have some big plastic crates that I just pack into. Yeah, so it should be fine.
Yeah, it wasn't actually a consideration on the application. They weren't concerned about what vehicle it would be used, just that the food would be transported at the right temperature. I think temperature was a big thing for my health officer, to make sure that if you're going to deliver something, if you're not going to be leaving your car, in the sun for an hour before delivering, that kind of common sense stuff. Yeah, no.
Thank you.
All right, who is going with the next question? And if you're like thinking, oh, I don't know what to ask them, they're here, what shall I say? Look back at your disadvantages. What were the things you were worried about on Monday? Why don't you ask one of those questions? Who's going next? Adriana, let's unmute you. There we go, good, yeah, go.
I've been thinking, I've been doing some research. I am really enthusiastic about starting this. I'm passionate about cooking. I've been looking through Google to see who can approach, and I found that, wait a minute, I've just been focused on cafes and healthy shops, but what else can I approach? What kind of clients, in your experience, have you approached in order to get order from them?
I've gone to local IGAs, especially the nicer sort of IGA that have the good deli section and things like that, to other supermarkets, like we have Farmer Jack's here, which is a big supermarket. They're obviously the health food chains, Go Vita, stock a lot of primal alternative across the country. Naturopaths, wellness sort of centres, chiropractors, small cafes.
So you leave your contact details with them, or?
Yeah, so sort of normally a brochure, an introduction, maybe take a couple of samples, a sample of a cookie, just, for the first time. If they're interested in tasting more, you could, do a proper tasting then. Just an introduction of myself and the brand. So a brochure or the stockist brochure, along with my business card, and then just follow up. Don't just leave it and walk away, always follow up.
So in the case of IGA, I have a couple of IGA around the area. So who do you approach? Do you call to the manager? Who do you need to talk to?
Somebody who does either the manager or they have an ordering manager sometimes, who looks after that kind of thing. I think it's not every IGA. We certainly got a few around us, and there were one or two that probably it wouldn't be a great fit for, but there were others that it is a more of a sort of, I don't know, an upmarket IGA or more of a deli sort of IGA, not the country town IGA that I used to have to shop at.
The other one that might be quite a good one, which I haven't done yet, but it's kind of been on my to-do list at some point, is food trucks, that do coffee. Have a selection of, they always have something that's gluten-free.
And a lot of the girls are getting into the boxes, the food boxes, the delivery boxes. So that's another option.
Like the organic delivery guys.
Yeah, so that's who my big stockist is, an online farmers market, and basically people go on. I was actually a customer of theirs before, and then I approached them when I started the business. But basically people go online, order their fruit and veggies and their sauerkraut and their pickles and kombucha, and then pick off some of the Primal alternative products. I bake all day on a Wednesday when they send me the orders on a Wednesday morning, deliver to their warehouse on a Wednesday evening, and then from the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they then deliver those products to people. So yeah, that's another good one to get into. The other one that's also quite good here in Brisbane is there are quite a few little organic butchers, little family-owned businesses, and my local butcher started stocking a lot of gluten-free stuff, and I think because his family went gluten-free. So I've approached him. They're interested in the wraps. So yeah, any organisation that's got a bit of a foodie focus.
I was also thinking about gyms, like especially the small one, because probably like the big ones might not allow you, but the small gyms might be able to have some for the people who normally goes there. So yes, but the food truck is actually a good idea, and also the chiropractors and this kind of, it's a good tip. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Adriana. We've got B with her hand up. So you can ask a question.
Going back to money, how, when you sell to IGAs, for example, they would be paying you in 30 days, or is it a cash in, it is an instant transaction? Do they have to pay you straight away? How do you deal with that delay in the payments? Do you have delay in the payments? I don't know.
I've been pretty lucky. My terms are 2 weeks, and that's what I discussed when we talk about ordering. But there are some smaller grocery stores who pay cash as I walk in the door and deliver the products, but generally it's 2 weeks, and most of my stockists are pretty good, I have to say. There's very few that I have to chase up beyond that. I know some people have struggled, but it is just about being consistent with them and saying the terms of my business, and staying on top of them, I suppose, and not letting them run away with it and still supplying a month down the track when they haven't paid you, because that does become difficult. You are a small business generally, and you need the cash flow coming in to keep ordering your products and stay on top of your expenses. So yeah, it's definitely, you do need to stay on top of your accounts.
There was a chat in the Primalistas group yesterday about this. There was a Primalista saying, I've got, so most stockists are nice and they will pay, but there's always, stockists not paying is a small but inevitable part of running a business, right? And there was a chat about this in the group, and the Primalistas were just helped sort of brainstorming some of the things that they do to help with stockists get paid on time. And one of the great tools we've got is the stockist agreement. So when a stockist is coming on board, you've approached them, they want to make an order, you have a stockist agreement that has been put together by a lawyer, and stockists can sign it. In there it just lays the terms in terms of, orders, I need your order in by Tuesday, I need you to pay in 7 days or 14 days, whatever it is for you. But at the end of the day, if they don't pay, then they're not an ideal stockist. And it's okay to tell them that you're not going to supply them anymore if they can't pay your bills. And then you need to go and find another stockist somewhere else. So yeah, Char, I know you're sort of new, you're sort of in month 2. Have you had much trouble getting your invoices paid so far?
No, I think because I'm a small business and I'm just one-man band, suppliers are more cognizant of the fact that I do need a steady income in order to order the ingredients. And it's not because I've mentioned it, it's because they've said we will pay, our payment terms are 30 days, but because you're a small operator, we'll pay on receipt of invoice. So I think that people do recognise that.
Cool. Just a question from the Facebook group. Is about rental. Char and Tania, I don't think either of you rent your house, do you?
No.
Okay. So what happens if you do rent your house? You need to speak to your landlord before you apply for your food business registration. Some councils say you don't need to, but I think it's just the right thing to do. And the key thing you want to be saying to your landlord is that your business is a small business. There's not going to be any customers coming to the house, so it's not going to be a traffic issue, and there's not going to be any additional wear and tear on the property because you're just baking. You're not turning the house into a factory. So that's a good one for that. Guinevere's got a question, has anyone had to rent a kitchen? I know some Primalistas do. Some want to take it more on a larger scale and they think they can pump more out in a commercial kitchen, or some of the Primalistas have just enjoyed packing everything up and going to work and having that work-home separation. And it's doable, but you just have to be mindful that the rent of the kitchen is going to come out of your profit margin, because this essentially is designed for an at-home model, but it can be done if you're doing it on a larger scale. And Tracy's got a question about hospitality businesses' cash flow with COVID restrictions. Have you found any issues regarding that, Tania and Char?
I certainly did. It went wild. The business just went through the roof when everybody was stocking up and doing their panic buying around March. And then it certainly went quiet as I think everybody realised they had to eat some of what they'd bought. And yeah, and then I certainly did. As delis and restaurants and things closed, I certainly did lose a few orders and a few stockists, but they have slowly come back on board because they've reworked their business model and they've had to also find ways to get their product out. So they've gone online, they've done takeaways, they've made plans as well. So the business has slowly come back up again, and I'm probably close to what it was again pre-COVID, even though I haven't got all those stockers back. Some of them have just not been able to come back, but that's how it goes. So it's also an evolving business where you can't just think I've got 2 or 3 stockers and that's it. You sort of always keeping an ear out, looking out, talking to people and building up relationships so that you have maybe somebody in the background who you can approach. So yeah, it has certainly, my business has changed a bit, but it hasn't died completely.
It's a bit tricky one for me to answer because I joined on the 11th of May and was producing by middle of June. So I think that says a lot about this business when you can join and start a business in the throes of COVID. And I didn't just start slowly, like I've literally hit the road running and I've got my fast running shoes on. I've just got to keep going. So I think that's a good case in point that people are much more invested now in their health than what they were pre-COVID. So the market will always be there for the product.
Awesome. All right, a question from the Facebook group with a newcomer, Ashley, who's just started watching in Facebook. She said, sorry if this has been asked before because I'm a late comer to the convo, but this hasn't been asked and this is a great one to ask because I know we've got two different stories with Tania and Char, and it's about getting your home kitchen food business registration approval. So Ashley's question is, how easy is it to get a council food license for your home kitchen? Do you have to do any specific modifications to have that approval? Tania, why don't you start?
Yeah, okay. Mine wasn't as smooth as Char sounds. I did wait about 4 or 5 months for my kitchen to be approved. A very sticky council member who was not going to make my life easy. But at that point, we didn't have the amazing food safety plan that we have now. We didn't have all the lab tests in a whole booklet that Helen's put together now. So I didn't have anything at the beginning to give to my health officer. I do have a dog, and that was one of the big concerns, was that, and my kitchen is open plan, so there's no ways to shut the dog out of the kitchen completely, because he was saying he's never allowed in the kitchen. But I did have a scullery off the side, and I had to put a self-closing hinge on that door so that I could bake in there and the dog could never go in there, and that was fine. My ovens aren't in there, but I do have a fridge and a double sink and the dishwasher in there. So it was doable, but he left the council, and the new lady who came in didn't have such an issue, and she was much more approachable and much friendlier, and by that point we had the whole safety booklet going as well, so we had a whole lot more information to hand over. So it did take a while, but we got there in the end, and Helen was hugely supportive through that process. And yeah, it's normally doable. There's very few councils, I think, that have absolutely said no. It might take a while, it might take a bit of negotiation, and in the end they're supposed to be helping you to achieve what you need to be able to run the business. They're not supposed to be just saying no. They're there to encourage business to happen in the council. So yeah, definitely doable.
I think certainly in the current climate, the councils are very invested in developing small business, so much to the point that the original council application fee was completely waived. I did not pay a cent for my application, which is incredible. And when I first put my paperwork in, my EHO said, nope, you can't do this, you're not doing this. And so it was a big process of educating the EHO that this wasn't typical bread, the product isn't typical, it's not the normal stuff that you see in the supermarkets or anywhere else. And then with the support of the food safety program, all the other guidance that you get, and also the other Primalistas, because everyone's had a story or a challenge or a difficulty along the way. It was within a week, I think, he came back and he said, okay, cool, put in the rest of your paperwork and I'll see. And then he phoned me the next week and he said, okay, I'm coming tomorrow. I'm coming to do your inspection tomorrow. And I just went, oh my word, okay. So you might encounter some resistance, you might not. It might be a smooth process, it might be a quick one, it might be a long one. It's just, we've got the backing of 100 people across Australia who do this and have gone through the process. So leveraging that definitely helped me.
And just on that one, we did have a couple of councils that said no. So there was Hervey Bay and Cairns, and they were like the two that said no. But since then, we've got approval from Hervey Bay and from Cairns. So I think that the no's were back in, like when Tania was saying, like 2017, 2018, when we didn't know what we know and we hadn't had that much experience with food business registrations. But I like to think of myself as a bit of a pro now for being able to overcome the objections that are the same all the time, like the ones that Char was saying. They just really don't know what we're doing. It's an education thing. Yeah, and even if you get a no originally, and that's why I always suggest you decide to become a Primalista before you start your food business, because you've got more chance of getting your food business registration with our help than you would do if you're on your own. All right, sorry about the earthworks noises can you hear it? I don't know if you can hear beep, 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 and lots of truck. You can, all right, I'll try. I'll mute myself. Every time he goes backwards, he's got that little reversing beeping noise. It's quite annoying. Okay, so a question from Angela to Tanya and Char. Do you find you get more business from stockists or from private orders? That's a good question.
I'm getting more from a stockist generally. Yeah, I've built my business around my stockists and have slowly done the private orders as an extra. So my main focus has been my stockists, because I know that's kind of a guaranteed every week, whereas retail can come and go a bit more. I do have a few very supportive retail customers, but it's mainly my stockists, yeah.
Yeah, same here. I wouldn't say a large percentage would be retail, but they do keep coming back, which is obviously encouraging. And it also depends on the mix of how you want to run your business. If you do a lot of markets, then you would have more retail customers that might contact you in between market days when they're looking for products. So I'm not doing markets yet. I thought I'd bite this one off first and chew on it a bit before I added another element into the mix.
Cool. All right, so keep those questions coming and raise your hand. There's a little thing, you can just press the 3 dots and you can raise your hand, which is pretty cool. Or you can go like that in real life as well. You're welcome. Angela says, thank you. You are welcome. So I'm just going to pick a question. I'm not going to say who said it, but that came from the perceived disadvantages. So let's talk about the money side of things as well. So B will be all ears pricked up again. If you're not successful as a Primalista, one of the concerns was if I'm not successful, then I've failed and I've wasted money on something that could have gone to other things. What would you say about that, Primalistas?
Well, I don't think I failed. If I've learned a lot along the way, and I've still enjoyed what I've done. Run a business for myself. I've learned a whole lot of new skills. I'm not tech savvy at all. I'm not amazing on Instagram, but I've certainly learned how to use it a bit. I've done video clips that I've never done. I'm on this, so I've certainly learned skills along the way, and I hope I could take them on to do other things. So I wouldn't see it as a wasted time. I've gained a lot. I've grown through the process, and I've been involved in my community, which is what I wanted to do. So even if I had to give up the business, I don't feel like I have wasted 2 years at all.
Yeah, same. And when I first looked at becoming a Primalista, I think I calculated that there was a certain amount of time. Let's call it, I don't know, let's call it 6 months that I had to do this. At not a lot of revenue every month to pay back the investment. So, you know, and then you'd be square, right? And then you'd also have all the added skills and knowledge and learnings that Tania just mentioned. So the investment isn't $100,000. It's not where you go, oh, if I fail, this is going to be $100,000 that I could have put somewhere else. So, yeah, if you get to a point of breaking even on the investment that you put into it, then, and you've learned something along the way, and you could potentially use that in the future to, you know, in a different business, then there's no harm done.
Perfect. That's great. Now, another question that's come up from disadvantages that I've got here. So we've talked about money, we've talked about cancel. What about sales? So one of the virtual open weekers has said, look, I'm not a pushy person. I lack confidence. I'm not really sure I could go out and sell these products. Can you tell us a little bit about the sales process, Char and Tania, and how you find it? And do you come from a track record of sales? Is that in your repertoire of skills or not?
Sales is certainly not in my skill set, and I was one of my biggest things as well. Not something I enjoy doing, but I love the product. And I suppose once you've tasted it, and if you enjoying using it and eating it, and my family's enjoying it, I don't have any hesitation in saying to someone, "It's great. You should try it." And I think it's not, don't feel like I'm pushing something on them at all. It's their decision, but I believe in it, and I think that comes across when you approach someone, is that you enjoy the products, you see the benefit in the way you're eating. My background is pharmacy, so for me, health, it was always important, but I didn't want to do it with drugs anymore. So I think food is the best medicine there is, and this was a really good way for me to segue from pharmacy to food as medicine, sort of, and I believe in it, and I think that comes across. I've never felt like I've been pushing people to come on board as stockists, and it very much is a relationship. And if they're not interested, well, I'm certainly not going to push it on them, because I want a two-way relationship that benefits both of us.
Yeah, and people love food. So, you know, give them one of our chocolate chip cookies and who's going to say no to that? But, you know, it certainly, I don't feel like I'm doing a hard sell when I have a conversation about primal alternative, because it's like Tania said, when it's something that you really believe in and love this much, it's not a sales process, it's a conversation. And I was in the conferencing industry for a really long time, and part of my job was to do sponsorship sales at one point, and I absolutely hated it because I couldn't give them a tangible benefit. I was selling an idea, whereas with this, you know, you give them some samples and they can try it and they can interact with it and they can use it in different forms and ways.
Yep, and I agree. I've been in sales all my life, working in gyms, selling gym memberships, and then as a recruiter, so selling the recruiting service. So it's always been a concept and never a product. And I used to always think, damn, I wish I could just sell a box, because, you know, the box doesn't have an opinion. You know, you'd sell a person to a company and then the company didn't want the person, or vice versa. So it was selling a concept's much harder than selling a product where people can smell it, touch it, taste it, feel it. And because we don't have any minimum order quantities, we're not one of those, you know, mocks and skews kind of food business. You can just, you know, you could start with an order as small as one packet of cookies. So it really is, it's not a big gamble for a stockist to give us a go. And, you know, we can be there and do tasters for customers and really help get those, you know, products. So it's a two-step process. You know, you got to get the product in the stockists, and then you've got to get the stock off the shelves into the customer's basket. But like Tania was saying, a lot of our stockists are based on relationships, and there's a lot of cross promoting, and Char said as well, you know, her stockists promote her, and it's fun. Like it's like a collaborative way to get product out, as opposed to a pitch in a sale. I just see it as baking products and making offers, and then people can say yes or no. So just a couple of quick things in the chat group. So from Jess, I assume the stockist would need to keep the product in the fridge. Yes, so we deliver ambient, so you don't need a refrigerated van or anything too hard like that. And then we extend the shelf life by storing it in the fridge. And space in fridge is a premium, so we've got some objection handling skills for that as well in the training and on the resources. Angela says, how long have you been doing Primal, Tania? 2 years. Yeah, this is Tania's 3rd year. So I think we've just gone over the 2.5 year mark. And Tracy's saying $5,000 is $50,000 to some people. She's been there, so she gets it. And absolutely, I don't disagree that $5,000 is a chunk of cash. Absolutely. But I think the point that Char was trying to make, correct me if I'm wrong, Char, but it's not just about getting a return on investment. There's more to this about, you know, growth, contribution, experience, as opposed to just getting your money back, earning money. It's a lot more than that. Yeah. Groovy. But it is a low investment business. I mean, it's a very low investment business. Okay, a question from Adriana, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. This question is for you, Helen. Let's say that I would like to go ahead full time. What is the maximum that a Primalista can earn, or from your list, what is the maximum of the gain from a Primalista? how much can you earn the top of the range?
Well, that would be, I don't have the figures on that, to be honest, because we don't do any sales reporting and we don't monitor that. So what I can show you is how long it would take to bake items and what the profit margin is on those items, because I don't want to say, oh, you could earn, I don't know, 10 grand a month, you could do 10 grand a month sales if you're not as fast or as organized or getting your equipment, your ingredients from the same stockist, and if you're selling everything at wholesale price compared to that person who's doing the 10 grand. Does that make sense? So if you go to, there's a page on the website called How Much Can I Earn as a Primalista? And that covers all of that there. Because I don't like saying you could make this or you could make that. Really, it's just a case of working out how many days you want to bake, whether you think that amount of money is that you can make in that day is worth your while, because we've all got different versions of success and how much what that looks like. And I guess the other thing to mention on there is you are just a one person business. This model isn't scalable. You know, you can't employ 10 people to make the products because they'd all need to be licensed as well. So it's just what you can physically bake as a one person band. Does that make sense? Does Char and Tania, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I'd say that's accurate. It really does depend on what you can do in a day as well, and what you're prepared to do in a day, what you have to give up or sacrifice in order to get to those levels, I suppose. I protect what I want initially in my home life and family life and friends and the volunteering that I do, and fit my baking in so that I know that I have, 2 days free to do that, and that's as much as I'm prepared to do at the moment. So if I wanted to scale it up, I'm sure I could, but I've found a healthy balance for me, and yeah.
All right, so we're just coming to the last 8 minutes of the Q&A. So I can see B's got a question, and I've got one more question on my list of perceived disadvantages is on one from the group too. So final chance to get your questions in. One of the questions was, I've studied a lot about real food, but I don't have any qualifications. Is that going to go against them, Char and Tania, if they don't have any like nutritionist qualifications, naturopath qualifications, catering qualifications?
Not that I've encountered. I've learnt and grown as I've done it. Landed up doing some catering, for for different events that have happened. So I'm interested in food, and I suppose so I'm willing to give it a go and learn from those events. I don't have any food background as such, no.
Neither. And to be honest, my mother-in-law always jokes that she still can't believe I'm doing this, because when she was visiting from the UK last year, she asked me to make her a birthday cake, and I bought one because I just always thought that I was a terrible baker. And I'm a good cook by my husband's recommendation, but baking's never really been something I've been really good at. And this model fits because it's, anyway, it's you don't need any formal qualifications.
Thanks for clarifying that. I'm a really bad baker as well. I was saying that the other day, wasn't I? That all my kids' birthday cakes are just failed, and it's like it's in the blood, because my mum always used to have failed cake and custard for dessert on a Monday night, because she's a bad. So yeah, you don't need any qualifications, and if you did, like, this model wouldn't be replicable. I'd have to go and hire chefs and nutritionists. Like it's not for those sort of people. Well, they can be. We do have nutritionists and naturopaths and people with catering backgrounds, but it's not essential, is the point. So a question from the Facebook group, from Tracy. She says, I've got fibro, so I'm concerned about this. Is anybody else working with an illness or on a health journey?
I think there are some of the girls certainly who've working through their own health journeys while they're baking. But that becomes having your boundaries as well, and knowing what you can do, and what you physically can do. I'm struggling with a bit of tennis elbow at the moment, but it's just about managing what your work level is, and I think that's in any walk of life. I don't think that's really particular to Primal Alternative.
Yeah, I think one of the things that definitely brought me on the pathway to discovering Primal Alternative was I've struggled for the last 4 or 5 years with terrible energy levels and foggy head and really sore body. I just turned 40 this year. And since, 35, I was just always in a lot of pain. And anyway, all these symptoms that had been going on for ages. And finally, about 18 months ago, I started to look at it a bit more closely, and then struggled with adrenal fatigue. And, eventually, then about 12 months ago, I found that I had Epstein-Barr virus, which can also, it flares up every now and then. It's basically the virus that gives you glandular fever, for those that don't know. But the virus never leaves your body. So it lies dormant, and then a stressful situation happens, or you pick up a cold, or, the flu or something, and it just knocks you for a six. And not a word of a lie, 12 months ago, or 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I'd be dropping my kids off to kindy and hitting the sofa, exhausted, not able to get up. And changes in diet and lifestyle, not that I've had major issues in terms of my diet, but, those things have certainly helped me. My husband then also at the end of last year was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is a chronic condition, and he also has had to go grain-free. So, yeah, I think that your health journey certainly plays into this, and I think that's once you start using the products that you bake, that's kind of why it becomes part of having a conversation rather than selling or pushing the product, because you're an advocate for it. You know what the benefits are in using these foods over more commercial things.
Yeah, and I can concur from interviewing hundreds of potential primalistas now. The question I always start with is, tell me about your health journey, because you have to have been on some kind of health journey to get to eat this weird food, right? You don't just stumble across it. We've all had to make some kind of changes, whether it's for ourselves, often it's for our children. We're just happy to continue eating crap ourselves, but then if something happens to our kids, everything's got to change, so so that's everybody, and that's why this is such a beautiful collaboration, because all the Primalistas understand the health journey of all their customers, and that's why it becomes more of a relationship. And I was just talking to another Primalista the other day, Tara in South Australia. She's saying at her market, so many people come up to her and share their health stories and say, thank you for making this food for me, it's really changing my life, which is just feels pretty good to go home and put your feet up after a market where you've connected. It's not just a sale, it's relationships, which is awesome. So question from Adriana, how do you manage the finances? Is there any particular system or just an Excel sheet? So I'm guessing that's a question about invoicing and taking sales. Making sales?
I used Wave. I think it is Wave. I just know what the app looks like on my phone. I think it's Wave. So that was a free one. I didn't have a business, with an accounting system already, so I just started with a free one, and that's been great for me. It does all the invoices. I keep track of it pretty easily. And between my husband and I, we do the monthly finances, and then at the end of the year, hand it over to our tax guy to take care of the final submission. So as easy as that for me.
Yeah, mine is I do through Xero, and I think it's a $10 a year fee, and it basically develops all your profit and loss statements and everything through your bank account. So any transactions will get allocated to credit and debit, and it spits out a report at the end. which I find straightforward. And then, just invoices. I do my invoices that I send to customers.
Wonderful. Just a message from Tracy in the Facebook group, who's only just found out about Primal Alternative and has just kind of dived in over the last 3 days. And I was having a chat to her on email, and she was saying, "Oh, I've run a cafe before. Did I enjoy it? No, I don't want to get involved with this." That was just this morning, and then she's been watching today. I was quite surprised she was here actually, and she just said, "I just got it. Massive click. I've come from a competitive background and just got the message of love from the Primalistas." Oh, and now she's going to apply for an interview because she just gets how this works. So how cool is that? That's awesome. Thank you. Gorgeous. All right, a question from Yvonne in Northern Territory. Does anyone change ingredients for customers with health concerns? This is a cracker. Is there any advice available for how to change ingredients?
No, it's very tempting. It is seriously really tempting to try and cater for everybody, and especially once you have a relationship and they say, "Oh, suddenly, but I can't eat chia seeds," and you know that they're chia seeds in the fructose and the turmeric and hemp. Well, I'm sorry, that's not the product for them then. There's lots of other options. First of all, it wouldn't comply with any of our labels, so that doesn't work. That's a legal requirement to have your ingredients on your labels, and then to try and keep track of it during a bake, and to know that you've maybe left the chia seeds out of one loaf of bread for one particular customer. It just doesn't work. You can't do it. Nope.
Yeah, and you can't really please everybody all the time. And as Tanya said, there's a wide enough selection in the products we have to cater for egg-free and certain things like the wraps, or nut-free bread over bread that contains almond meal. So that there is a bit for everybody, but we can't please everybody.
Well said. Don't change the recipes. It actually says in the other resources, sorry to crush your creative flair, but no, you can't change the recipes. And we all get asked, but honestly, once you start doing it for one person, then you just end up doing it for other people. And like Tanya said, the labels become inaccurate and therefore illegal. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. So we've got so many different products now that cater for so many different needs, whether it's dairy-free, egg-free, low-carb, vegan, paleo, there's vegetarian, there's something there for everybody. So it's just a case of saying, "Oh, I'm sorry you can't eat chia seeds, why don't you try this?" We've got a lot of things in there for everybody. But we definitely don't try and please all the people all the time. That's one of our mottos, right? Okay, so I think this is the final question. And just on software and invoices and finances, Xero is another product that some Primalistas who are a bit more bookkeeping savvy use. If you're not really into accounting, I wouldn't suggest Xero because you have to know how to use it. And I got it and thought it would just do it all by itself, but didn't. So I got a bookkeeper instead. So Wave is a free app that most Primalistas use. And those that are doing market stalls use Square, which is really, really cool. And you can hook that up to your Facebook shop as well, or your website. So final question, unless there's any last minute questions from B, is do you cook in 90 centimeter ovens? How many breads, for example, can you bake at once? Love it. Great question.
I've only got a 60 centimeter oven, and I can get, if I put the tins in properly, 12 loaves in there. But I find they don't bake as evenly. My heat distribution isn't good enough. So I actually reduce the number of loaves, and it's quicker just to do another batch than to try and squeeze more into my oven. I do have a convection microwave, which I find bakes even better than my oven. So I've been using that as well. So I've got a 60 centimeter oven and a convection microwave, and that's all I've ever had.
I've got a 90 centimeter oven, and I think with the 90 centimeter, it seems to be a little bit, because it's so wide, it's not as high as I don't know, I can't remember what the size is of a normal oven. So I was thinking that I would probably get 2 rows of breads in, but you've got to allow enough room for the breads to rise. because some of them, especially the pumpkin and zucchini, have a beautiful top. So I fit in 11 loaves at a time, and I don't have any problem with heat circulation, so it's been pretty consistent.
Cool. I started with a 600 oven, and then I thought, oh, I'm going to upgrade to a 900, and you can get exactly the same amount in. So because like what Char was saying with the height, that it's not as wide, it's wider but not higher. And what I found, I liked my 600 better, and I just went to the tip shop and got another couple of 600 oven trays, so that when I was doing cookies and pizzas, I could get 4 racks of cookies and pizzas in, because obviously they're really flat. So if you're thinking, oh, I need to upgrade my oven or renovate my kitchen, you don't. Just work with what you got, because both a 600 and a 900 are just as good.
Yeah. I went onto my Buy Nothing group and asked for anybody throwing out an oven for an extra rack, and I got one through that.
Yay. No such thing as waste. I love those kind of groups. That's so cool. All right. Any final questions before we wrap it up? Before we no-nut hemp wrap it up? Sorry. I just think of that every time. I'm such a bad sense of humor. Anything else? No? Are we all done? Primalistas, would you like to add anything else before we wrap it up?
Give it a go. Enjoy it.
Yeah, all those little things that I was really concerned about at the start just have not even featured or eventuated. And, you know, like they say, 86% of all concerns and worries sort themselves out. And this has certainly happened. I don't think I've had any major challenges that haven't been able to be fixed with some support. And that's the other thing I've just got to say. The Primalista network and the sisterhood is phenomenal. Like Helen was saying earlier, people were brainstorming yesterday over a problem. So everyone's really collaborative, supporting, encouraging.
Why wouldn't you want to be part of this? So good. And you know, it's not even like it's you know, like I go there with my problems too, don't I? I'm like, oh, what are we going to do about this? And I'm not sure about that. And everybody, we all support each other. It's a very linear structure, which is really cool. I really like that. Okay, well, thank you so much. Char and Tania, you've done an amazing job. You know, like I said, we haven't rehearsed anything. There hasn't been any, you know, idea what we were going to get thrown at today. I think you've answered it beautifully, really openly and honestly, which is, you know, that's what we're all about. That's the culture. And you've really complemented each other really well. You know, like it's just been so smooth, and the engagement's been awesome from the virtual online weekers. So thanks for rocking up again. I know some of you are on your 4th day of, you know, a 4-day streak of not missing a session. And I think that's awesome. It really, you know, really impressed with your dedication. And thanks to everybody in the Facebook group as well. It's been awesome. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.